that my wife busted tail and I married her. So, my brothers and sisters and Karen, my wife, and I would like to welcome you all here today. I wrote a few things down while we were waiting for this. So, we'd like to welcome you today in honor of my mom's 90th birthday. You honor her with your presence here today. We have people from all over the country who have come. My cousins, Bonnie Jo and Barbara Ann, have driven together about 24 hours to get here today. My nieces and nephews who flew from various ends of the country have been here. My sister who flew, and brother-in-law who flew from England to be here. And we have people from all over the world. And from all over the place here as well. Mom, these were all the A-list people. The truth is, the restaurant couldn't stand the B-list people. There wasn't enough space. So we actually had, it was actually even surprising to me that we had very few people who sent in their regrets that they couldn't come. And every one of them sent in regrets because they either were very far away, so Jerry and Shirley, you know, or the other relatives were so far away that they couldn't make it here. And then others who had health problems. Your friend Buzz, who actually lives in Pueblo, said he's actually got a few years on you and his vision isn't good enough for him to actually be able to make it drive back in the dark. But he sent his regrets. I mean, it's really quite remarkable, all of the people who came here, and it is, I think, a real testament to you. Today's a day of celebration. Yeah. It's also a day of reflection. And in reflecting, I want to say thank you. Not only for giving me and my siblings life, but in actually teaching us how to live it, in showing us how to live it. By example, you've taught us kindness and generosity of spirit and means, and that seems effortless. I gotta stop looking at her, because it's a part of your character. It's your nature. As a kid, you constantly demonstrated it, and when I was writing down the ways in which I remember you demonstrating it, I then was watching the pictures, and I remembered all of these other ways. And so I had all these examples, and then I remembered all these other examples as I watched this. I thought about Jack, my cousin, who came to live with my parents, and lived with my parents for well over a year. Jack had cerebral palsy, and my mother lost an entire set of dishes, teaching him how to eat and drink from china and glassware instead of plastic. I remembered little things like when she heard from the housekeeper at the rectory that the priests had holes in their blankets. At that very moment, I was a kid, and we went to the store, and she bought linens and blankets for the priests and had me deliver them. Every Sunday, she made way too much food, and she would box up boxes of it for Kevin and me to take up to Mr. Koneman and down the street to Angie, so that they would actually have Sunday dinner and dinner really for a week. I mean, there are many, many more. Your small kindnesses occurred so frequently that they basically filled your waking hours. Those same Sunday dinners also reflected a quality that you had. When friends and family would gather and everyone was welcome. The Jews have a tradition. My wife is Jewish. The Jews have a tradition at Passover to leave the door open, so any stranger can come in and eat. And basically every Sunday was Passover at my house. We called Sunday the Widow and Divorcee Club because everybody who didn't have a place to go had a place to go. And everyone's friend and their friends were welcome and to be enjoyed. I joke that my mother never met a stranger, and it's true. And today, actually, sitting at the table back there is a couple, Laura and Brian Chapin. This last Christmas, most of the family actually went to England for Christmas to visit my sister and her family. And my brother and his boys were supposed to come, and because of unforeseen circumstances, at the last minute couldn't come. And so my mother, who doesn't see very well and walks with a walker, as most of you know, had to decide what she was going to do, and it took her about 23 seconds, and she decided, I'm going. And so my brother and his sons drove her to the airport, and she got on the plane. And she had the good fortune to sit next to Laura and Brian, who we have in the family referred to as her guardian angels, because when she got off the plane, my nephew met them in London. And my nephew Travis said that, when he figured he was going to pick up my mom, when he came out, here's this couple that came wheeling her out of immigration, and they gushed about, we love your grandmother, and we love to stay in touch, and here's their card, and and so we were all so grateful for the care that they had taken, and she, of course, knew everything about them. And she said, he gave me his neck pillow. She helped her get to the bathroom, and she said, he practically cut up my meal and fed me. And the truth is that that's the truth. And she knew everything about them. They had become, her friends. They had become part of her family. She really has never met a stranger. And so I had meant after this to send them a note, send them a thank you, and of course life got in the way, and I hadn't done that, and I sent an email, and I said, look, this number one, so I'm Doris Bunnell's son. You sat next to her on this plane on December 22nd, going to London, and and you took very good care of her, and I wanted to thank you, and I'm sorry that it was that my thank you is so late. And by the way, we're getting together to celebrate my mother's 90th birthday, and we'd love for you to be there. And this may seem a little weird, but we'd love for you to come. And Laura called me, and I said this, I don't know, it was probably 2 in the morning my time, and the next morning I get a call from Laura saying, we would love to come and celebrate your mother's 90th birthday. And that is a testament to these wonderful people, and a testament to my mother. Mom, you also taught us commitment. You married Dad in 1944. You taught us commitment, not necessarily good judgment. But you were married to him for 62 years, despite the fact that you would have gotten less time if you killed him in the early part of your life. Many of you knew my father. He had many wonderful qualities, many wonderful qualities. Being an easy person was not one of them. But you showed us how to weather the good times and the hard times. Now, I don't want you to think, despite her demeanor, that she is just some soft, squishy little old lady, because she is tough as nails and was a great businesswoman. She had a philosophy about honesty and treating people well, but she was no pushover. In 1994, I think it was, my wife and I took my mother had always wanted to go to Italy, and the idea of spending 2 weeks in the car driving around Italy was, a little frightening. So we took a cruise, and part of the cruise we stopped in Turkey, and we took my mother with us to go buy a carpet. And my wife and I went into this place to buy this carpet. You look at me like you don't remember this. We walked into this place, and we looked at this carpet. We found this carpet we really liked and we wanted, and we would have paid way too much for. And and my mother stepped in for the negotiation. And by the time that we were done, they closed the shop, served us tea, and sold us the carpet for about a third of what we would have paid for it. I think, you know, had we stayed there longer, the guy would have gone out of business. She seizes life, and she always has seized it and known how to live it. You saw the pictures of her riding Kevin's Harley Davidson here. Those were from about a year ago. There were, a few years ago, my family came out for Christmas and we took them all to this indoor water park. And my kids, this was years ago, my kids were little and they were scared to go. They had this tube that you went up about 4 stories, and it was this tube that was all inside, so it was all dark. And you got on the tube and you would ride it down inside this completely dark tube down to crash into the water down below. And my kids were scared to do it. And Grandma was in her mid-80s at that point. And so she grabbed the tube and walked up 4 stories worth of stairs, threw the tube down, jumped on top of it, and went down the 4 stories through this tube to splash into the water below and got my kids to go. The following summer, my daughter Ella went out to stay with them and to visit my brother. My brother has boys, my girls are girls. And they grew up with us, and so hadn't done all of these other things that, that my brother's boys have done. My brother's a boat, and they ride motorcycles and things like that. Not the way we've raised our girls. And my brother took them out on the boat and took them, had this tube that they pulled behind the boat, and my daughter Ella was, a little scared to get on the boat. So Grandma said, I'll get on it. And Grandma gets on the tube. We have great pictures of Grandma being pulled in the boat on the tube behind the boat, and in her 80s. I told you we went to England. When she got back, she was like, oh, this was so hard. I think this was my last trip. I'm not going to do it. And about a week later, I get a call from my brother Mike saying, Mom said that, maybe she'd like to go back to Italy one more time this summer. And then yesterday I heard from my nephew Travis that he was having this conversation with her, and he said, so Grandma, is there anything like you wanted to do that you haven't done yet? Anything like that at all? And she said, I'd like to go skydiving. Because the next thing she said was something to the effect of, except that if I went, I'm just, I've had this difficulty with my back, and I'm just kind of afraid that if I did it and I landed wrong, I might hurt my back. So I could go on and on and on about what she's taught us about living. But most of all, she's taught us how to love. Because every one of us have experienced it. So I want to raise our glasses and toast to my mom, who taught us and who showed us all how to love and how to live. And there's no greater legacy than that. Absolutely.